What if humanity's survival rested on one final chance to outwit an alien empire that's known no mercy? Imagine a world where Earth has been reduced to ashes, a fleeting memory in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. The KLYX, a ruthless alien empire with their biomechanical fleets and cold, calculating minds, stripped away humanity's home and left us scattered among the stars. But this isn't just a story about defeat, it's about what happens when the will to survive is pushed to its breaking point. The first scene plunges you into the depths of space, where the remnants of humanity cling to a fragile hope. A lone pilot, battered and haunted by the horrors of the KLYX invasion, stares into the void. Behind her are the ashes of a shattered Earth, ahead lies the galaxy that turned its back on humanity. The camera pans across the pilot's trembling hand, gripping the control lever, as she utters a single, defiant promise, "I'll make them pay for everything." This is more than a tale of survival, it's a quest for revenge and transformation. As you'll soon see, humanity is no longer just a scattered race of refugees. In the face of extinction, they've turned desperation into innovation, using the very technology of their enemies to fuel their fight back. But in this quest for revenge, the line between hero and monster blurs. What is humanity willing to sacrifice to reclaim its place in the galaxy? And will their vengeance make them any better than the KLYX? This journey will take you through emotional highs and devastating lows. You'll witness the unraveling of personal vendettas, the forging of unbreakable alliances, and the unyielding determination of a species that refuses to be forgotten. Every choice carries a price, and every action echoes across the stars. Stay tuned to uncover the gripping twists, heart-pounding confrontations, and shocking revelations that will leave you questioning the true cost of survival. As the final battle looms, one question lingers: when humanity strikes back, will it mark their redemption, or their ultimate extinction? The void of space stretched endlessly in all directions, a cold, unfeeling expanse dotted with the faint glow of distant stars. The remnants of humanity's past flickered dimly across the galaxy, a few scattered colonies, fractured fleets, and the skeletal ruins of what were once thriving orbital cities. Silence ruled this desolate expanse, broken only by the occasional whisper of a passing meteor or the faint hum of an ancient satellite drifting aimlessly. Where Earth had once gleamed as a vibrant jewel in the darkness, there now lay a vast field of debris. Charred fragments of satellites and space stations floated silently, circling the blackened husk of what was once humanity's cradle. Ash and dust swirled in slow motion, caught in the gravitational remnants of a world that no longer existed. The KLYX, a species as alien as they were ruthless, had reduced the planet to this graveyard, a stark reminder of their might and humanity's failure to resist. But amidst the ruins of this galaxy-spanning war, there was movement. On the edge of a dying star system, where light barely reached the frozen wastelands of a long-abandoned planet, a cluster of ships hovered. They were patchwork creations, built from salvaged wrecks and stolen KLYX technology. Their hulls glinted dully, lined with scars from countless battles. These ships were not just machines, they were a symbol of survival, cobbled together by a species too stubborn to surrender. The air within these vessels was heavy, saturated with the metallic tang of recycled oxygen and the faint hum of failing life support systems. The walls pulsed with dim, flickering lights, casting shadows that danced like specters of the past. In the cramped corridors and hollowed-out compartments, whispers echoed, fragments of conversations in dozens of languages, all tinged with the same undercurrent of desperation and resolve. Outside, the planet below was a wasteland. Frozen ocean stretched across its surface, broken only by jagged mountains and deep chasms that oozed toxic vapors. The once thriving settlements that dotted the planet were little more than skeletal structures now, consumed by frost and erosion. It was a hostile world, unfit for life, yet humanity had made it their base, a testament to their resilience in the face of impossible odds. Above, the KLYX patrolled the galaxy. Their sleek, black ships were silent predators, slipping through space like shadows. Their technology was unmatched, living, breathing organisms fused with machinery. The KLYX didn't just conquer, they consumed. Planets, resources, and entire species fell under their control, absorbed into their empire like fuel for an ever-expanding machine. Yet, in the dim light of humanity's last stronghold, there was a spark. A spark of defiance. The ships gathered here weren't just waiting, they were planning. For every piece of technology the KLYX had destroyed, humanity had learned how to rebuild. For every world they had taken, humanity had found a way to fight back. And as the dying star cast its faint, reddish glow across the fleet, it wasn't just a symbol of decay, it was a warning. The galaxy might have forgotten humanity, but soon, it would remember. The silence of the fleet was shattered by the blaring of alarms. A red glow bathed the interior of the flagship's command deck, where monitors flickered to life, displaying the unmistakable silhouette of a KLYX patrol ship on the perimeter of the star system. Its sleek, obsidian hull seemed to drink in the faint starlight, making it a near-invisible predator against the black expanse of space. "They found us," a voice crackled over the fleet-wide comm system, tinged with the grim acceptance of what those words meant. The patrol ship wasn't the real threat, it was the signal it would send. Within moments, the KLYX would unleash a fleet of their own, and this fragile cluster of humanity's last ships would be nothing more than smoldering debris. Inside the flagship, tension thickened like a storm cloud. Crew members scrambled to their stations, their faces pale but determined. Every move felt urgent, every second critical. This wasn't the first time they had been hunted, but each encounter pushed them closer to the edge. Supplies were dwindling. The patchwork fleet was held together by little more than hope and ingenuity. A tactical officer's voice cut through the din. "The KLYX ship is holding position, no signs of reinforcements yet." The unspoken fear lingered, not yet, but soon. In the war room, holographic projections of the surrounding star system flickered, showing the narrow corridors of escape. The KLYX's influence stretched across the galaxy, leaving humanity with few safe havens. The fleet's commander studied the maps, their jaw clenched. Options were few. Fight, and risk destruction. Run, and lose the chance to reclaim stolen resources. Either choice came with the same haunting question: how long can we keep running before there's nowhere left to go? The atmosphere aboard the ships shifted, from quiet determination to the whisper of doubt. Some voices murmured fears of annihilation. Others called for action, to strike at the patrol ship and send a message of defiance. But even as the debate raged, the clock ticked down. And then came the voice of the ship's AI, cold and emotionless, incoming transmission from the KLYX vessel. A chill ran through the crew. The KLYX never sent transmissions, they attacked, consumed, destroyed. What could this mean? What were they planning? The commander gave the order. "Put it through." A distorted, guttural voice filled the room. "Surrender, or face extinction." The conflict was no longer distant, it was here. The distorted voice of the KLYX transmission echoed across the command deck: "Surrender, or face extinction." For a moment, there was silence. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their faces etched with fear and anger. The KLYX's message wasn't just a threat, it was a reminder of what they had already lost. The commander's gaze hardened, and they slammed a fist onto the console. Extinction isn't an option. Not today. As the transmission ended, the tactical officer reported, "The KLYX patrol ship is charging its weapons." Red warnings flashed on the monitors, a grim countdown to destruction. The fleet wasn't prepared for a full-scale fight, most of their ships were barely held together by scavenged parts. But running wasn't an option either. The KLYX would track them, hunt them down like prey. Amidst the rising tension, an unexpected alert interrupted the chaos. A faint signal, a human distress beacon, pinged from deep within the toxic atmosphere of the planet below. It was an old signal, one long thought lost. The room fell silent as the realization set in. "That's impossible," the science officer murmured, scanning the data. "That beacon is pre-war tech. It shouldn't even be active." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Could it be a trap?" "It's possible," the officer replied. "But if it's real, there could be survivors, or something valuable enough to turn the tide." The room was split. Some argued that the fleet couldn't spare resources for a wild chase. Others insisted the signal was too significant to ignore. The commander weighed the decision, knowing the stakes. The fleet couldn't afford to lose more, but they also couldn't afford to ignore a potential opportunity to strike back at the KLYX. The final decision came with the weight of inevitability. We'll send a team to investigate. One ship, fast and covert. The rest of the fleet will prepare for the KLYX reinforcements. The chosen ship, a small, agile scout vessel, was hastily prepared. As it descended into the planet's atmosphere, the fleet watched in tense silence. Toxic clouds swirled around the ship, and communication signals began to distort. Then, just as the scout ship broke through the dense fog, an explosion rocked the command deck. The KLYX patrol ship had opened fire, and the fleet was forced into a desperate defensive maneuver. The commander's voice echoed through the chaos, "Hold the line. Whatever's down there, it better be worth it." The mission had begun, and there was no turning back. The scout ship dove deeper into the planet's atmosphere, its hull groaning under the pressure of the toxic air. Swirling clouds of green and gray engulfed the vessel, lightning flashing ominously in the distance. Communication with the fleet was patchy at best, the crackling voices barely audible over the roar of turbulence. Inside the ship, the crew worked in tense synchronization, their movements precise but burdened with the weight of the mission. Every system failure, every unexpected jolt, pushed them closer to the edge. Back in the fleet's command ship, chaos reigned. The KLYX patrol ship had called for reinforcements, and now 3 more enemy vessels blinked into existence on the fleet's radar. The ships, sleek and deadly, moved with terrifying precision, surrounding humanity's fragile remnants like wolves circling wounded prey. The fleet was no match for the KLYX's superior technology. Makeshift shields flickered under the barrage of enemy fire, and the flagship's structure groaned with every hit. Crew members shouted across the deck, scrambling to keep critical systems online. The commander's voice cut through the din, issuing orders with a calm that belied the growing desperation. "Focus fire on the smallest ship. We need to break their formation." The battle raged on, a grim symphony of explosions and metal tearing apart. One of humanity's smaller ships took a direct hit, its engines igniting in a brilliant burst of light. The loss was a gut punch, a reminder of just how fragile their existence had become. But there was no time to mourn. Every second counted, and every action carried the weight of survival. On the planet's surface, the scout ship finally broke through the storm, descending into a desolate wasteland. The ground was a jagged expanse of cracked earth and frozen rivers, punctuated by crumbling structures from a long-forgotten era. The distress beacon blared louder now, its signal emanating from the heart of a cavernous ruin. The crew hesitated for a moment, staring at the ruins on their monitors. Something about the place felt wrong, too quiet, too still. But there was no turning back. They donned their suits and exited the ship, the air outside thick and acrid. The ground crunched beneath their boots as they approached the source of the signal. Inside the cavern, the walls shimmered faintly, lined with a strange, bioluminescent growth. The distress beacon sat at the center, atop a pedestal that looked far too intact to belong to any human creation. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "What is this?" one of them whispered, their voice laced with awe and unease. Before they could investigate further, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. The ground trembled, and the glowing walls began to shift, almost as if they were alive. The beacon's pulse quickened, its rhythm becoming frantic. Above, the fleet fought desperately to buy time, their dwindling numbers a grim testament to the KLYX's relentless assault. Below, the crew realized too late that the signal wasn't a call for help, it was a trap. The rising storm of chaos and danger had only just begun. The ground beneath the crew shifted violently, throwing them off balance as the cavern's walls came alive. The bioluminescent growth twisted and pulsed, forming patterns that looked unnervingly like veins. The beacon, once a steady rhythm of light, began emitting high-pitched, mechanical screeches. It wasn't a signal of hope, it was a lure, and they had fallen straight into its trap. Above, the fleet continued their desperate battle. The KLYX reinforcements now outnumbered humanity's ships 5-1. The commander clenched their fists as another vessel exploded on the radar. The defensive line was breaking, and every second the scout team was planetside felt like an eternity. Inside the cavern, the crew struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. One of them cautiously approached the beacon, scanning it with their handheld device. The data streaming across the screen made their heart race. This isn't just a beacon, they stammered. It's a KLYX bioweapon, a hybrid of their technology and organic matter. If this activates, it could wipe out entire star systems. The revelation struck like a thunderclap. The KLYX hadn't just laid a trap, they had planted a weapon powerful enough to ensure humanity's extinction. The crew exchanged panicked glances, their minds racing. Could they disarm it? Was there even time? Then, another realization dawned. The device wasn't just a weapon, it was also transmitting data. Somewhere, the KLYX were watching them, monitoring their every move. The beacon wasn't just bait, it was a signal to the KLYX fleet, guiding them directly to the planet. In that moment, the situation changed entirely. The crew's mission had shifted from discovery to survival. If they couldn't disarm the weapon or destroy the beacon, everything would be lost, not just for the fleet above, but for all remaining human settlements. The leader of the crew made the call. We can't leave this here. We either destroy it or we all die trying. As they scrambled to rig explosives around the beacon, the cavern trembled again. This time, it wasn't the walls, it was something deeper, something alive. A massive, KLYX-built Guardian emerged from the shadows, its form an unsettling blend of machinery and organic terror. Above, the fleet's commander received a fragmented transmission from the scout team, the beacon, it's a weapon. Static consumed the rest. There was no turning back now. Humanity's survival depended on the crew below, and the price of failure was extinction. The cavern erupted into chaos as the KLYX Guardian surged forward, its grotesque form illuminated by the pulsating glow of the weaponized beacon. Its movements were disturbingly fluid, its metallic limbs merging seamlessly with organic tissue. A mechanical roar reverberated through the chamber, shaking the ground and sending chunks of rock crashing down from the ceiling. The scout team scrambled into action, dodging the creature's initial assault. Sparks flew as its razor-sharp appendages sliced through the air, narrowly missing their target. The leader barked orders over the comms, their voice steady despite the chaos. Keep it distracted. We need more time to set the charges. One crew member unleashed a volley of plasma rounds, the bright bursts lighting up the cavern. The shots landed, but the Guardian's biomechanical armor absorbed the impact, leaving it unscathed. It turned toward the attacker with an eerie, inhuman precision, its glowing eyes locking on like a predator zeroing in on its prey. Meanwhile, the others worked frantically around the beacon, their hands trembling as they armed the explosives. The weapon pulsed faster now, as if reacting to their presence. The scan showed its energy signature climbing rapidly, a countdown to detonation had begun. Above, the fleet was nearing its breaking point. The KLYX reinforcements had surrounded them, and the commander knew they couldn't hold much longer. Over the crackling comms, they demanded an update from the ground team. Status report. Do you have the beacon neutralized? Static filled the channel before a strained voice broke through. We're almost there, but we've got a KLYX Guardian. Hold them off as long as you can. Back in the cavern, the fight escalated. The Guardian struck with relentless fury, its claws tearing through cover as the crew dodged and countered. One member was thrown against the cavern wall, their suit cracking under the impact. Blood smeared the ground as they struggled to stand, refusing to give up. The explosives were finally in place, but the countdown on the beacon had nearly reached 0. The leader shouted, "Fall back. We're out of time." The team began retreating toward the scout ship, but the Guardian blocked their path, its towering form radiating menace. With no other option, the leader made a split-second decision. They grabbed the detonator and charged toward the beacon, drawing the Guardian's attention. Go! Get out of here! The remaining crew hesitated, torn between saving their leader and surviving. But the cavern trembled violently, signaling the beacon's imminent activation. They had no choice. As the scout ship ascended, the leader stood before the beacon, staring down the KLYX Guardian. With a grim smile, they pressed the detonator. The cavern was consumed in a blinding explosion of light and fire, shaking the planet to its core. Above, the fleet watched as a shockwave rippled across the surface, silencing the beacon's deadly signal. Humanity had struck a blow, but at an unimaginable cost. The shockwave from the explosion rippled across the barren planet's surface, sending clouds of dust and ash spiraling into the atmosphere. For a moment, the entire fleet hung in silence, watching the planet below through cracked and battle-scarred viewports. The beacon signal had gone dead, but the cost of that silence was etched into the faces of every crew member. On board the flagship, the commander sat slumped in their chair, their grip tight around the armrests. The battle with the KLYX ships above the planet had left the fleet decimated. Of the 20 vessels that had arrived in the system, only 9 remained intact, and even those were severely damaged. The remains of their fallen allies floated among the stars, a grim testament to their sacrifice. A long pause followed before the reply came through. "The beacon is destroyed. But we lost the team leader." The word struck like a physical blow, and the commander's shoulders sagged under the weight of the news. There was no time to grieve, no time to process. Instead, they issued a somber acknowledgement. "Understood. Prepare for docking." As the scout ship docked with the flagship, the surviving crew stepped into the dim, smoke-filled corridors. Their faces were pale, streaked with grime and exhaustion. Each step was heavy with the weight of what they had witnessed. One of them carried a small, charred data drive, the only piece of the beacon salvaged before the detonation. The commander met them in the docking bay, their eyes scanning the team for the face that wasn't there. The absence of the leader was palpable, a void that no words could fill. "Good work," the commander said softly, though the words felt hollow. The data drive was quickly analyzed in the flagship's war room. The results were both a revelation and a warning. The KLYX beacon had been more than just a weapon, it was part of a larger network spread across multiple systems, each one capable of the same devastating power. Destroying the beacon was a victory, but it was also a glimpse into the enormity of the KLYX's reach. For hours, the fleet worked to stabilize their systems and tend to the wounded. The medical bays overflowed with injured crew members, and the engineers struggled to repair critical damage to the remaining ships. Through it all, a quiet determination settled over the survivors. They had faced impossible odds and survived, but survival was no longer enough. In the command deck, the commander stared out at the stars, their reflection shimmering faintly in the viewport. They had lost so much: Earth, allies, and now a leader who had embodied humanity's resilience. But they hadn't lost hope. A crew member approached, holding a pad with a new scan of the surrounding systems. "Commander, we've detected faint signals, other human colonies. They're far, but reachable." The commander turned, a spark of purpose igniting in their eyes. "Then we'll go to them. We'll regroup, rebuild, and fight back." The fleet began its slow journey away from the ruined planet. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vast galaxy that still harbored both threats and possibilities. As the ships limped forward, the crew found moments of solace amidst the chaos. Small gestures, shared meals, quiet conversations, and recounting memories of the fallen created a fragile but unbreakable bond. One of the surviving crew members, the youngest among them, approached the commander during a quiet moment. "Do you think we can really win against them?" The commander didn't answer immediately. Instead, they gestured to the viewport, where the stars glittered like tiny beacons in the void. "The KLYX think they've taken everything from us, our home, our strength, even our hope. But they don't understand what it means to be human. We adapt. We endure. And when the time comes, we fight with everything we have." The young crew member nodded, their fear tempered by the commander's conviction. In the days that followed, the fleet broadcasted a signal across the stars, a call to any surviving humans, a message of unity and resistance. "To all who can hear this, humanity is not defeated. We fight on. Join us." Across distant systems, the signal was heard. Small, hidden colonies, thought long abandoned, stirred to life. The remnants of humanity began to rally, their fragmented forces slowly converging. Stories of the fleet stand against the KLYX spread, igniting sparks of rebellion in places the enemy thought subdued. The KLYX, too, had noticed. Their fleet movements became more aggressive, their patrols more frequent. They had underestimated humanity once, but now they prepared for the full force of resistance. As the fleet moved through the stars, a sense of purpose took root among the survivors. They trained relentlessly, studied the KLYX's weaknesses, and used every scrap of salvaged technology to strengthen their forces. The sacrifices of the past became a rallying cry, a reminder that even in the face of extinction, humanity refused to fade quietly into the void. The commander, standing on the bridge of the flagship, watched as their fleet grew, ship by ship. The once tattered remnants of humanity were transforming into a force capable of striking back. They thought of the fallen leader of Earth and of the countless lives lost in the war. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about revenge. Humanity would rise, not as victims, but as a force that the galaxy could no longer ignore. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the fleet pressed onward, carrying the echoes of extinction and the promise of vengeance. The fleet sailed through the vast, uncharted expanse of space, a fragile yet determined force of humanity's resilience. Though battered and diminished, they carried with them something the KLYX could never extinguish: hope. The destroyed beacon marked a turning point, but the battle against the KLYX was far from over. In the flagship's command deck, the commander stood before the viewport, gazing at the endless stars. Behind them, the hum of activity continued as the fleet worked tirelessly to repair, regroup, and prepare for the inevitable next encounter. The salvage data from the beacon offered a sliver of hope: coordinates for another hidden KLYX facility, possibly housing another weapon, or the key to their undoing. The commander's voice, calm and resolute, broke the silence. "We've taken the first step, but this war is far from over. The KLYX will come for us, harder and faster than before. But let them. We'll be ready." In another part of the fleet, a small team examined the beacon's data. Among the fragmented files and encrypted codes was something unexpected: anomalous readings that didn't match KLYX technology. It was older, deeper, something that predated even humanity's understanding of the galaxy. One scientist whispered, almost to themselves, this isn't just about the KLYX. There's something bigger out there." The camera pans out, leaving the fleet behind as it drifts through space. The scene shifts to a distant, dark part of the galaxy. A massive KLYX mothership looms, its biomechanical surface writhing with activity. Inside, a figure stands before a pulsating console, its alien features bathed in eerie light. The KLYX overlord reviews the destruction of the beacon and the loss of their patrol ships. Its voice, deep and resonant, fills the chamber. They are more resilient than expected. But resilience will not save them. It turns to a subordinate, issuing a command in a guttural, alien tongue. The screen displays a massive fleet, far larger than anything humanity has faced. As the mothership's engines roar to life, the scene cuts back to the human fleet. The stars ahead seem infinite, their light a stark contrast to the dark forces looming just beyond. A voiceover from the commander echoes, "We are no longer running. We are no longer broken. This is our galaxy, and we will fight for it." The screen fades to black, leaving the audience with one lingering question: what happens when humanity's fight for survival reveals an even greater enemy? If you're curious to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and stay tuned for the next chapter of humanity's fight for the galaxy. This is just the beginning.